Good evening to all of you. All are here. All are here attentively and seriously. Thank you. So, shall we start now, and without any pause, without any unnecessary commas, we are starting, and we are beginning with some questions. And thanks to all of you who are here with a attentive mind. This evening, what we have to do? This evening, all we are here just to discuss a very important thing, that is the cardinal aspect of life. Do we feel sensitively that this entire earth is suffering? We don't want to begin with this kind of thing like suffering, fear and other things. We always wish to entertain and to be entertained. So I am feeling with a sorry word that I am not going to entertain you. All we are here just to attend what is reality, what is fact, what we are facing nowadays. We are facing an earth, a good old earth, full of disease, diseased mind, suffering. We have decided, obviously, the group Shashwata decided to celebrate an evening with some wisdom, some intellect, some intuition, if we can cast light on our daily problems such as suffering. So I am grateful to this group Shashwata. This is actually, it connotates like Sushruta, Sushruta Samhita. In the same sound, it seems Shashwata. Shruti, Shashwata and their entire team are here just to celebrate. If we have any wisdom to cast light on our daily suffering, our age-old suffering, and it sounds bad that we begin with suffering. We have chosen a particular philosophy. We know we have Veda, the knowledge, the supreme wisdom, the first poetry attained by the seers, the monks on this earth. It was so difficult to understand, to comprehend the intended meaning in the Veda. So all the seers and monks in that period, in the Vedic period, they created some disciplines to understand, to investigate, to explore the suggested meaning, the intended meaning, the intrinsic meaning encapsulated in Veda. This is known as 6 systems of Indian philosophy. Vedanta, Vaisheshik, Nyaya, Mimamsa, Sankhya and Yoga. Vedanta means where Veda goes to end. Veda, Brahman, Aranyak, Upanishad. Here ends Veda. That's why it is termed as Vedanta. So from the point of view of Vedanta, we can understand Veda. From the point of view of Vaisheshik, we can comprehend Veda. From the point of view of Nyaya, logic. From the point of view of Yoga. From the point of view of Mimamsa, hermeneutics. And from the point of view of Sankhya. Today we will investigate the core cause, the root cause of our suffering in the light of this system of philosophy termed as Sankhya system of philosophy. Sankhya system is based on reasoning, intellect, because when the all wisdom, visions are encapsulated in Vedas, that was the time of intuition or insight. Insight or intuition is a gift given to mankind. Unlike animals and birds, from the energy, cosmic energy, universal energy, eternal energy that is gifted to human brain that can comprehend which is beyond limit. That is what Veda is, the knowledge or wisdom is. There are so many words: knowledge, wisdom, insight. Today, this evening, we will maintain ourselves, fix ourselves on some key words. We will restrict ourselves to some core key words and not deviated in words, because we are here not to explain any philosophy, but to investigate together, to explore what is the actual cause, what is the root cause of our suffering. So Sankhya system is a perspective after the age of intuition. Vedic seers were full of intuition, not touched by our thought or the contaminated ideas, the impurities of mind. I think this is most easy to approach the postulates and encapsulated words from Veda. We will see how mind blocks our tendency to intuit. So that was the age of intuition. But since mind is always active, intellect is always active, so the age of reason came along and they create the system of Sankhya. Sankhya is a perspective full of reason or reasoning. Though all the seers and monks, sages, they were full of intuition, but they found there is a great role of reason, intellect, to comprehend the actual meaning of Veda. So it is assumed from me that I will throw some light on what is Sankhya all about, what is there in this Shastra, in this perspective. Then we will discuss what suffering is, and including the speaker, all we know what suffering is because we suffer, we are suffering. And then we will find, is there any help from our ancient system and ancient perspective? How am I to approach our daily immediate suffering directly from the perspective of Sankhya philosophy? Philosophy in Indian sense, it is love of truth, love of wisdom, and all we are supposed to, the being of love or the lovers of wisdom, all we are the lovers of wisdom, we are the lovers of truth. We cannot attain any falsehood, any fallacy, any make-believe. Now, Sankhya, not oft quoted philosophy, lesser discussed philosophy. It is the philosophical side of yoga. Yoga is the practical side of Sankhya, and Sankhya is the philosophical aspect of the same yoga. That's why it is called Sankhya Yoga. Nyaya Mimamsa, logic and hermeneutics, Nyaya Mimamsa, Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya, the very term, is coined and articulated from the word Sankhya, the numbers, because the seers, the Vedic seers, realize that the God is many. The energy, the supreme energy, is manifold. It behaves in multiplicity. The appearance, the form of supreme intelligence, wisdom, energy, God, or whatever we like to term, it appears, it takes form in multiplicity, in numbers. It eats through numerous mouths, it walks through numerous legs, it acts through numerous infinite hands, it smiles through numerous faces. So the appearance is the form of that supreme energy or intelligence. That's why the term Sankhya determines the term Sankhya. This is the literary meaning, this is the word meaning. And what is there in that Grantha or Shastra or scripture or exegesis? What is there? What is the message of Sankhya? When we go through this philosophy, this is a voluminous text articulated by a monk, that is Kapila Muni or monk Kapila. I assume he was from Kashi, the ancient old Kashi, the oldest city on this earth, because still there is a temple not destructed by the Muslim invaders, in 9th and 10th century. That temple is still here in the name of Kardam Muni, monk Kardam, who was the father of Kapil Muni. The name of that temple, Shiva temple, is Kardameshwar Mahadev Mandir. It is still here. Kardam was the father of Kapil, and Kapil articulated all the postulates of Sankhya philosophy. Even in Bihar, there is Kapil Math or Kapil Ashram, and there were descendants of Kapil Muni. They practiced Sankhya philosophy. For example, Hariharanand Aranya, he was the descendant or the president of Kapil Muni, monk Kapil. So the philosophy continued from Kapil till date. After Kapil, there was another seer who modernized this particular philosophy. So it is now called classical Sankhya, because the language, the technical terms were very ancient, old. He felt that it must be renewed. His name is Ishwar Krishna, after Kapil, who renewed the language, the philosophy of Sankhya. So we can say this is the philosophy of monk Kapil, and the philosophy encapsulated in 70 karikas. We generally term it as shloka, but these are karikas, the encapsulated verses. 70 verses founded by Ishwar Krishna. This is named as classical Sankhya. The entire wisdom of Sankhya system, this school, is encapsulated in these 70 verses. In any scripture, in a book, we found 71 or 72 verses. Actually, last two verses are the complementary verses. In general, these are 70 in numbers. Then there are so many commentaries upon these verses. Commentaries by the great seer Gaudapada. He was the master of Adi Shankaracharya. Then we found a commentary by Vachaspati Mishra, and so on. A series of commentators, they commented upon Sankhya Karikas. The most important, most significant or oft quoted commentary people refer to is commentary by Vachaspati Mishra. This is termed as Sankhya Tattva Kaumudi. And in the modern period, Pandit Ram Shankar Bhattacharya from the same Kashi, who translated the entire Karikas, all 72 Karikas, in Bangla, Hindi and English, rectifying what Vachaspati Mishra has missed or misinterpreted. So what is there? What is there behind the philosophy of Sankhya? In general, all we know, all wise people know that the essence of Sankhya says there is a combination of Purusha and Prakriti. That combination of Purush and Prakriti gives a creation, and that's all. This is Purush Prakriti Sangyog. We find happiness when there is Purush Prakriti Sangyog. We suffer when there is Purusha Prakriti Viyog. This is the essence drawn by the Sankhya philosophy in general minds. But we can delve, we can go much deeper than that. So today we will go a little further, much deeper than the general outlook towards this philosophy, Purush Prakriti Sangyog, Srishti, creation. In general, people assume that Purush is the man, Prakriti is woman, and the Sangyog is the love between man and woman resulted in creation, Santan, child, a baby. This is the general mind towards the Sankhya philosophy. But if you are really interested to go through this text, this scripture, this exegesis, then you will find it goes much deeper than this general phenomena. Maybe you will find it dry, boring, and finally we find the exact thing, the exact essence, what is actually said by monk Kapila, monk Ishwar Krishna. The exact essence we find in the text written by Pandit Ramshankar Bhattacharya. He was a great scholar from Varanasi, Kashi, and he averaged, shed all the dust on this text by the commentators, by Gaudapada, by Vachaspati Mishra, and he pointed out how we should approach this philosophy, what is actually there in this philosophy. Right? So, this is what it is. So, the essence of Sankhya system is, if Purush is incorporated with Prakriti, Purush is God, the energy unlimited, the absolute energy. Prakriti is matter. If there is this Sangyog between the energy and matter, then only the creation, the salvation, the unbound joy, happiness, ecstasy can be attained by us. Right? So matter, energy are our modern vocabulary. So we can continue this evening with the modern terms, modern words, that is most times scientific. And we are not fearful of scientific terms, though they are technically difficult, but we can utilize what matter is, what energy is, in the sense of science, in the sense of our approach towards the words. Right? So, we are suffering, that is a fact, that is a reality, that matters. Suffering, there are so many kinds of sufferings, form of sufferings. Death, accident, disease, old age, these are all the biological suffering, the physical sufferings on this earth. Pandemic, drought, flood, sufferings, form of suffering. Apart from physical sufferings, we have our inner sufferings, psychological sufferings. I am hurt, and the consequences of this hurt. I am hurt in my childhood. I have faced a tormented childhood. I have gone through an excruciating pain in my adolescence. Then the consequences of that hurt. This is a common factor, common reality that matters. What is the consequence of the hurt? We make walls around us. We act from behind the walls, become neurotic, approach a psychiatrist. Suffering from depression, frustration, gloominess, sadness, boredom, loneliness. Various forms of suffering. Sometimes we have the glimpse of happiness, that is pleasure. When there is a glimpse of happiness, and when we recall that happiness, that is actually pleasure. And when that pleasure is gone, we are left with pain, like a boy with a toy, a baby, a child with a toy. I am absorbed in the marvelous beauty of sunset, shaded with the black shades of clouds, the orange moon at the dusk, the twilight moon with the shades of clouds. I am absorbed, I am lost with the marvelous mood, orange moon. And after that, again we came back to our own pain, own daily way of lifestyle, like the child with a toy. Toy is destroyed, or if child is bored, the child is left with its continual pain or weeping or suffering. Right? So there are numerous sankhya forms of suffering. Right? So how to end this suffering? Shall we ask some better questions in modern terms, in scientific terms? Right? So, what is the cause of suffering? What is the root cause of suffering? Are you waiting from me to be answered? No. The speaker is not here to answer. There are answers already given by the seers and monks, by Buddha and the Sankhya system. We are here to investigate. Investigation, Greek, to explore. The etymological meaning of investigation is to explore. We are here to investigate the problem seriously. It is not an intellectual rigmarole. It is not a verbal comprehension. We are acting. This must not be only words, the ashes. If we are really concerned to this fact, this matter, this reality, this pain, the grief, the sorrow, then only we can go together and investigate the root cause in order to wipe out the cause to attain the happiness of life permanently. Right? So, there are three ancient terms: Prakriti, Purush, and the knower. In Sanskrit, it is called Prakriti, Purush, and Gya. Gya or Gye or Gyat, known, the knower, and the knowledge. Gya, the last consonant of Devanagari alphabets. Then the Prakriti, and then the Purush. So in order to go deep in this topic, in this subject, in the root of this topic, we must find out first what is Prakriti. Is it nature or is it matter? Naturally, we have to enter into the domain of science. We know the exact science is physics, and the exact physics is thermodynamics. And from our very childhood, we are afraid of entering into the domain of Sanskrit, the domain of mathematics, the domain of physics. But if it is comprehensive to you, then it is most interesting scientific thing to approach our whole life. Right? It begins with, like in ancient India, we find this discussion on matter from the very ancient Greece. In ancient Greece, the term coined by the ancient scientist was substance. At that time, the term matter, in Hindi it is padarth, was not used by the Greek scientist. They coined the term substance. Now it is considered that substance is the pure form of matter. Right? The word substance. Ancient Greeks like Thales, he found the water is the first principle that is considered as matter or substance. Water is the primary substance. Water is the fundamental principle of substance. Because from water he could see the glimpse, the shadow of God, and from that principle they created Greek gods, looking God in everything, beginning with water, the primal, primordial substance. Then next Greek Stoic scientist, Heraclitus, who found change is the first principle. Change in nature is the first principle in terms of matter, in terms of substance. What was substance in that time is now matter in modern era. Right? So, Heraclitus says this change is permanent. This is imperishable change. The change itself is a fundamental principle in the nature, in the universe, in this world. This imperishable change renovates the world. Here we can find the wisdom in this scenario of pandemic. This imperishable change renovates the world. And then first big book on science appeared by Aristotle after Socrates and Plato with the title Physics. They found exact science is physics. Wisdom drawn from Thales, Heraclitus and Parmenides. Even from the wisdom of Pythagoras, Pythagorean beauty of mathematics, that was the offshoot from this philosophy, from this science. So Aristotle's book Physics begins with the title Principles of Nature. In that time, there was no such thing as laws of nature. Like at that time it was substance not matter, so it was principle of nature, not the law of nature. From Aristotle we proceed, gone through Locke, Hume, Descartes and Kant till Einstein, Heisenberg, Niels Bohr, right? Between Aristotle and Einstein, there was a great scientist called Newton. That's why this era is called Newtonian physics or classical physics, like classical Sankhya. We must go through the glimpse of the journey of science, the journey of physics, just parallel to our Sankhya philosophy. We will see what Sankhya says in terms of Purush and Prakriti. The modern science say in terms of matter and energy, right? Because the earnest investigation upon the relationship between matter and energy is to rescue humanity from age-old suffering, because the suffering is eternal. Your suffering, my suffering, the physical suffering, the emotional suffering, the psychological suffering, and beyond all these petty sufferings, there is a continual flow of suffering from millennia, from time immemorial. And a scientist, a scientific mind, an artist, an artistic mind, a seer or monk, a seer mind, constantly engaged to wipe out the cause of suffering, the cause of human pain. Still it is there, just before our eyes. So, the journey in science from substance to matter, from principle to law, from Aristotle to Newton in classical physics, and from Newton to Einstein, we find some basic things. Reality, matter. Matter means a mass, very easy, a mass that occupies a volume in the space. This is the scientific meaning of matter. Matter is mass, occupies a volume in the space. It never considers that which has no mass, like photons. It is constituted with electrons and protons, but it excludes the very essence of photon, even light and sound. This is what matter is. And the etymological meaning of reality is that which conditions in time and space. That is reality. So matter is reality. It is conditioned in time and space. The essence of life laid in science. Exact science is physics, and exact physics is thermodynamics. Thermodynamics is actually now the laws of nature. It actually deals with the relationship of Purush and Prakriti, the energy and matter. In our school days, all we know, there are two laws of thermodynamics. As Aristotle begins with his first chapter, Principle of Nature, saying that there can be only two laws, two principles, or more than two, not more than three. Here he begins. There can be only two principles, or more than two, not more than three. Similarly, we find there are only two laws of thermodynamics, or we can add one more, not more than three. In order to understand seriously the relationship between Purush and Prakriti, the relationship between energy and matter, we can go through from our school days what the first law of thermodynamics says. It says there exists a thermodynamic energy that remains constant or increases. Very simple. In this universe, in this cosmos, in our life, there exists a thermodynamic energy that remains constant after altering all numerous forms on this earth. Numerous forms of trees, forms of animals, forms of vegetables, forms of insects, forms of human species. We know the Western outlook in the evolution of species are from the sea, then the vegetable and the trees, then the one cell, then the multiple cells, then the reptile and the mammalia. Next form is not available on this earth. Human species is the last station in this journey. So the first law of thermodynamics says there exists a thermodynamic energy. It remains constant or it increases regardless all the altering forms in this universe. So many forms and forms and forms, the changing scenario, the imperishable change. That is the first principle, the fundamental principle, the primordial principle of nature, the imperishable change. From our Greek thought till date. The second law of thermodynamics says there exists a thermodynamic variable. The next law, the second law. There exists a thermodynamic variable. Naturally, it varies. That's why it is named as variable. When it varies, it creates layers. When this variable varies, it creates layers, creates temperature difference. This variable, when it varies, it creates layers, leads to temperature difference. In the first layer, the temperature is certain, so-called A, and in the next layer it is B. So we find a temperature difference leads to energy called heat energy or disordered energy. Second law of thermodynamics explains there exists, this is the law of nature, there exists a thermodynamic variable. Where it varies, creates layers, creates temperature difference, leads to heat energy, that is always disordered energy. And for this disordered energy, there is a scientific term called entropy, meaning saying that all we are going to die. Whatever is created on this earth is going to die. So there is no chance for a person to escape from the mouth of death. Though it is pandemic, maybe one can be a fair person, fair enough from me in wisdom. He can be a wise man, he can be a poor man, he can be a wealthy man, he can be a famous man with renowned status. Any person, any human species, any person cannot escape from the mouth of death, from the mouth of corona. Right? The second law of energy says all we are going to die. No matter I am young or old or senile or a child. No matter. Who bothers? All we are going to die. This is entropy, second law of thermodynamics. Entropy means disordered energy. Whatever is created, made or built on this earth is going towards its end. There is a tree going towards its end, a flower, a grass, the beautiful flower of bougainvillea, the river, the sun, everything. The scientist assumes that there will be a day when the sun will it will be transformed into a hot ball of fire. And in the Greek period, after Thales, who declared that water is the basic substance, Heraclitus was the person who declared that no, fire is the basic substance, the fundamental substance in the nature, in this enormous nature. Fire. Why? Because it is matter and it is a moving force as well. Fire is matter, a static form, and fire is a moving force. So, here we understand that there can be two types of matter. Sankhya system says Prakriti is of two types. One is Vyakta and other is Avyakta. And it is interesting to know Sankhya begins with suffering, dukkha. It begins with three kinds of suffering. Again, in the ancient language, Adhyatmik dukh, Adi Bhautik dukh, and Adi Daivik dukh. Adhyatmik dukh means pain regarding our body and mind. Suffering, biologically, old age, disease, death of end of the organism, and at the same time suffering, hurt of our emotional life, our mental life, our psychological life. So Adhyatmik dukh means our biological and psychological suffering. Then the Adi Bhautik, accident, and any kind of, like a snake bites, any harm from other animals, that is Adi Bhautik. Adi Daivik means not divine but a distrust from a mind that may called as Rakshas or Vinayak. Friend around us, but the evil force, evil mind that can harm us, that is the suffering called as Adi Daivik Dukh. So Dukh is threefold: Adhyatmik, Adi Bhautik and Adi Daivik. So from our ancient period, we can see, this is a fact, that people, wise people, were concerned, have been concerned about this human suffering. It is eternal, it is universal. Not my suffering or your suffering, but there is suffering constantly. A river of suffering is flowing around us. And they were the concerned people who delved deep into this problem, and still all the concerned people are exploring why these problems are still existing. We have Vedas, we have Upanishads, we have so many schools of wisdom in Greece, in Rome, in India, in France, in Switzerland, everywhere. But still man is not secure. Nobody can provide a person a state of security, emotional security, psychological security, physical security. Anything can happen at any time. We look for entertainment, and when the entertainment is over, we are left with the same pain. We come back at the same status of suffering. Right? So many escapes are there. Books, dance, music, philosophies, so many entertainments, religious and political. All the circus, all the business of life. But if we are seriously concerned with this issue, that is suffering, that is human suffering, because my brain is not my brain, it is a particular brain, it is a universal brain evolved in millennia, in crores of years, in thousands of years. This brain is conditioned, that determines our behavior. Right? So people, philosophers, scientists, seers, they are engaged, they were engaged, they have been engaged in solving the problems of life, the problems of suffering, the problems of fear, the problems of evil, the realization of love, and the realization of God as well. Because we suffer the problem of evil, Adi Daivik. We suffer the problem of pain, the Adhyatmic, and the accident, and so on. So Sankhya system of philosophy begins with Dukh, describing all aspects of Dukh, and then it attempts these terms as Prakriti and Purush, and the coupling state of Prakriti and Purush to create. For the creation, untouched by any pollution or contamination. Right? So Prakriti, matter, Purush, energy. Purush is not a masculine body. It has nothing to do with genders, male, female, or male-female relationship. There are masculine principles, there are feminine principles active in our body, in both gender. This is a two genders planet. So these principles, these laws of nature, or the principles of nature, are active all the time in human body, male or female. So Purush and Prakriti both are to do with the human species, but it has nothing to do with the genders. Purush is not the male and Prakriti is not the female. Clear? We have gone through the laws of thermodynamics. We have gone through what matter is, mass occupying volumes in space. So there is time, there is space. Space is time. Right? Clear? Very easy. Science and mathematics, its mathematical implications, very easy. Then there are atoms and subatomic particles. Then there are approaches how to understand this mystery of nature, how this nature unfolds itself, if it is Vyakta and Avyakta, manifested and unmanifested, Vyakta Prakriti and Avyakta Prakriti. How am I to decipher the mystery of nature? So Einstein, the approach of Einstein was to approach this mystery with the theory of gravity, and he was lost because it is so enormous, so immense in its energy. A man is lost with the theory of gravity. Then comes along the theory of quantum physics, how we can approach the big mystery in terms of atoms, molecules and quarks, in the subtlest form of matter. And they again lost because the subtle world of matter is so enormous that a scientist lost, like Einstein. Uh, there were several people. Heisenberg, we know the law of uncertainty or the law of quantum physics. This is very popular name in popular science. All we have gone through this name, Heisenberg. Heisenberg and Niels Bohr, Einstein and Niels Bohr, they met, they conversed, and there was a conference called Copenhagen Conference that determined so many principles and of nature. They approached the mystery of nature, in terms of quantum theory of gravity, means by the help of the subtlest nature of matter and the biggest nature of matter, quantum theory of gravity, and they again lost. So outwardly, all scientists, they lost in finding the true nature of Vyakt Prakriti and Avyakt Prakriti. There were several meetings between Rabindranath Tagore and Einstein in Germany, in Shantiniketan. We can go through very interesting dialogues made between them. When Einstein asked Tagore, "What do you think? This world is in action in spite of you. This world is active though you are not, or this world is active due to you. How do you think?" This was the question. In several questions, this was an interesting question, significant question asked by Einstein to Tagore. How do you think? This world is going on and on and on from time immemorial. You are here or not, still it is there in spite of you, or this world is moving due to you. Tagore replied, "Due to me." The entire world, the enormous nature of man, only the enormous nature, the infinite nature of man can comprehend the mystery of nature. This was the answer made by Tagore. The infinite nature of man can comprehend the mystery of nature. And then it was the turn of Tagore to ask. Tagore asked, if everything is relative, then what is absolute? If everything is relative, then what is absolute? Einstein maintained silence because he too was searching what is beyond the relativity. Though there is a great contribution by Einstein in terms of field theory, field, kshetra, and the fielder, the kshetragya. Kshetra and kshetragya, these are the two again ancient terms from our Gita. Gita is a synthesis of all Indian philosophies. Gita is a text treatise, synthesis of all systems of Indian philosophy. Nyaya, Mimamsa, Sankhya, Vaisheshik, Yoga, Veda, Upanishad, everything. The synthesis, the essence of everything is Gita, where we find discussion on Sankhya, discussion on, in terms of Sankhya, discussion on Kshetra and Kshetragya. The universal field theory founded by Einstein on the basis of gravitation theory or the theory of spatial theory of relativity. So we will not enter in the vast area of atomic physics and physics. We are here to understand what Sankhya says in terms of Purusha and Prakriti. But how am I to approach the essence of Purusha and Prakriti? Because outwardly it is very confusing and we are lost. All scientists are lost, including Paul Davies and Heisenberg. You can go through the book Physics and Philosophy by Heisenberg with a preface written by Paul Davies. contemporary of Stephen Hawking and Roger Penrose, right? But at the same time, we have to enter into metaphysics. Metaphysics means approaching physics philosophically with the reasoning. What is life? What is the cause of suffering? If there is such thing as God, how to approach love? What is the meaning of life? This is metaphysics. The metaphysical analysis, the reasoning, what Sankhya does. So it is clear Sankhya begins with threefold dukkha and threefold explanation: Prakriti, Purush and Gya, or Vyakta Prakriti, manifested nature; Avyakta Prakriti, unmanifested nature; and the knower. So how can we approach? We are investigating these terms, these essence, these principles in modern language, putting aside the ancient, obsolete terms as the ancient language. How are we going to approach? This is the question. Just delve into it. The speaker is not answerable. We are investigating to explore the cause of suffering and how we are going to wipe it out together. What can be our postmodern approach towards this problem? If I am hurt, the question is, what is it that is hurt? If I am hurt, then what is it that is hurt? The mind, the soul, the consciousness. And what is the nature of consciousness? See, a simple question can lead us towards various multiple options of words. So if I am hurt, what is it that is hurt? The speaker is not here to answer. We are investigating. How shall we approach? Because we hurt people and we are hurt. Create a cave, a room, isolate ourselves from the evil forces, from the negative forces, then we act neurotically. That is the consequence of hurt, of being hurt. But that is a form of pain, of suffering, constantly. This session, this evening, is not addressed to those who try to entertain themselves with music, film, news and political and spiritual circus. This session is addressed only to those who really concerned to wipe out the problem of suffering of mankind. The suffering of animal, the suffering of birds, the suffering of human species, the emotional and the mental. Right? So how am I going to approach this problem? And who is going to approach? The mind, the man, the woman, the person who is being hurt and trying to get out from the cage of hurt, approaching salvation, approaching God. What is it that is hurt? This can be a question. What is the phenomena of human behavior or human mind? All the time our brain registers what is happening around us. Like we click a photograph. So photograph becomes an image and then a series of images that we have called mind. Image, not what I create image about you or what I create an image about myself or how you think about me, or I think about you, or what I think that you think about me, the persona. No, simple clicked photograph, images all the time. There is a registration of images, clicked photographs in our brain called mind. That we say we think, and we simplify our mind as mind is a thinking faculty, right? Thought is mind, mind is thought. Very simple. But what is thought? A series of images. What is image? If I say you a word horse, then if you have the image of horse in your brain, then only you can identify, understand my word, right? Very simple. If I say a word bird, grass, right? President, prime minister, hen, cock, anything, horse, ass, donkey. If you don't have the image of the donkey, you cannot understand the meaning of donkey. So word is image and image is word. So there are numerous images in our brain registered through millennia. So this is not my brain or your brain, but this is a brain, a matter evolved in thousands of years, in millennia, evolved, conditioned. And then the images, the series of images, the scenes, and the juxtaposition of images, putting together arbitrary way or haphazardly or in a sequence, one image, then second, then third, then fourth, the sequence of images, a film, and there is a filmmaker, right? So we call the filmmaker as the thinker, and we call the films, the images, as thought. But the correct word, correct term is image, sequence of images, sequence of films, sequence of frames, because we see things in images according to our own interest, our pleasure and pain. We see the world according to our own interest, our own pleasure, conditioned in time immemorial, in millennia. So series of images are in our brain, the sequence, the juxtapositions of images, and there is a film and there is a filmmaker. So Descartes says, I am, therefore I think, or I think, therefore I am. So this I, the filmmaker, right? So I am, so I think, or there are thoughts or images, so there is the thinker or the filmmaker. The fact is, the reality is, the actuality is, there are images, so there is the filmmaker. We says, I am thinking, I am acting upon, I am in movement. This I is the filmmaker. No? Image, series of image, series of forms, sequence of forms, that creates the sense of a person in this human body, the filmmaker. There is no filmmaker who is creating the image, a frame, and juxtapose all the images. But if we can go deep, a little further, then we can see that I am showing you this I, the speaker, is nothing but a filmmaker. There are images that creates the image maker, not the image maker who is creating the image. This is the illusion. There is the image which creates the image maker, which creates the sense of the image maker or the filmmaker. Brain is conditioned in millennia to register the image, whether all we are aware of or attentive or not, attentive or inattentive, aware or unaware. The function of brain is to register all the images, awakened or unawakened, consciously or unconsciously, right? The nature of consciousness is the content of consciousness. The content of human consciousness, we know, is very simple, are anger, hatred, jealousy, fear, being frightened, wanting to love, wanting to be loved, and so on. These are the content of human consciousness. We are not free from that. And how we can see our grief, our greed, our fear, we see in images. We create the observer and the observed, the thinker and the thought, the analyzer and the analysis, the thing to be analyzed. So the drashta, darshan and drishya in ancient terms. Drishya is prakriti, darshan is attainment of the prakriti, and the darshak, the gyan, the knower. Prakriti can be manifested or unmanifested, vyakt or avyakt, but there is a knower all the time. All the time there is a knower. I am doing my books, my building, my property, my greed, my anger, my status, my prestige, my rewards, my punishment, my awards, my salvation, my moksha. So me and mine all the time. There is a sense of I, and that we call it as Purusha. But if we approach this scientifically, I am not a brain scientist, but discussed with so many quality brain scientists throughout the world. There was a conference in 2012 in NIAS, National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore. Several quality brain scientists were there to talk on consciousness. So we discuss, and that is the conclusion of the brain scientist, that this is not my or your brain, but this is a particular brain evolved in millennia. There is a conditioning, and the conditioning is to register images. That image creates the owner of image, that we term and call as I. I think, I see, I go. And that I is illusory, not reality. That this is not Purusha. And that image or thought, that image process is a material process. Thought is a material process, because outwardly we couldn't find the answer from Aristotle to Einstein via Heisenberg. So now we are approaching inwardly, because we are having a mental life. We call physical hurt, physical accident we face, but there are psychological hurts, emotional hurts. There can be a glimpse to wipe out this hurt if we feel security. We pursue pleasure in order to secure ourselves. Leads to pain. We feel if there is no pursuit of pleasure, we are insecure. So we look for love that can help us Because we find in our very childhood, when a mother loves her baby, baby feels secure. The problem of security is over. If there is love, there is no sense of insecurity. So first there is fear, then there is a longing for security, leads to pain, because from the ground of searching security we seek pleasure, and pleasure is the another name of pain, the proof mistake. Pleasure means pain. These are not two words. Pain is the synonyms of pleasure. So out of seeking security, there is a pursuit of pleasure turns into pain. We are left with the suffering. And if there is love, we feel secure. We feel, or the child feels. When a mother loves her child, a child is playing and it feels secure. So there can be a postulate we can suggest to the whole of humanity that if after the hormonal changes in the age of 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, if we have the attraction towards the opposite sex, putting aside the infatuation, the sexual discourse, the intellectual verbal comprehension, if I love you, then it means what? That means I am responsible for you. Like mother is responsible for her child. If I love you, I am responsible for you. If I love this earth, I am responsible for this earth. Clear? So this earth is secured, bereft of disease, devoid of disease, devoid of pandemic. But we are fearful of the end of our biological organism, death. That is the root fear. But apart from this, is if we are shifted to the Prakriti, in nature, we are subject to the laws of nature. Law of nature, we are subject to birth, grow, decay and death. All matter is subject to law of nature, birth, grow, decay, death. Then we try to shift towards the Purush, the Amrita, the eternity, the salvation. Because no life, human or animal or birds, no one is ready to die. That means there is an innate desire to live on this earth. We don't want to die, but the matter is subject to birth, growth, decay and death. What else dies? I die means what? The image or the filmmaker. What dies actually? Our position, our status, our books, our property, our name, our fame. Let it die. So, Sankhya suggests that this is all what our intellect, buddhi, does all the time. Buddhi gives the illusion of the Gya, the knower, that is an illusion, and that buddhi feels that I know, I am in collaboration with the Purush, the energy, unbound energy, there is energy, and that is again an illusion. So buddhi, the sangyog between buddhi is Prakriti, so the sangyog between buddhi and Purusha is not the cause of creation, because this is the cause of illusion, because buddhi is the filmmaker, the image maker. Now what are we going to do? If we are attaining this fact that there are images and there is a filmmaker, then we are separated from this fact. There are no images, no filmmaker. There is no sense of I or ego. There is no selfish behavior, though there is no egotistic behavior. Which means what? Now I am here, bereft of ego, selfish nature, images and the filmmaker. Left with what? Is it the life? A person is moving without pleasure and pain, without any images. Is it the life? No. There is something beyond. When our brain is in pain, in suffering, all brains are provided with the enormous amount of nature. But when we are in fear, in pain, that energy is abrupted. That me and the images blocked the flow of nature. That is the disease. That is the cause of disease, as Sankhya says. From the Karika number 3 to 67, it discusses the meaning of Purush and Prakriti and the blockages. And in the Karika, in the verse 67 till the end, it helps us to bring about another sense of Purush, that is enormous energy free from our buddhi or intellect. That is Purusha. In modern sense, if we are full of greed, human pains, hatred, all the content of consciousness, how am I to approach this enormous beauty, the enormous energy? Am I capable to receive that energy? If the mind is empty, if the intellect, buddhi is not contaminated with the images, with the impurities, then the receiving end is burning to receive, to grasp the enormous beauty of energy. And that energy is love. That energy is compassion. We can take one word to encapsulate, to envelop all these words: friendship, compassion and love. The one single word, love, that envelops all. If the brain is free from its conditioning, the registration of images, the illusory sense of I, the filmmaker, if there is purity, if there is sanctity in the buddhi, the intellect, it receives what is sacred. That energy, that enormous energy is sacred, pure, and that is beyond our mind. That is called heart or love. That is there. But there is something beyond energy. And again, this is a constant flow. The journey is going on. So, am I ready? Are we ready to purify our own self? Are we ready to die towards this image and the filmmaker? If we are ready to die, actually death is not the end of this organism, but the end of all images, all the illusory shades of me, mind, I and like the filmmaker. That is actual death. And from death, from that departure point, the point of death, we can attain Purusha. And then only there is a Sangyog between Purusha and our own self. That is knowing the self. Then there is this Sangyog, a combination of the purity and the Purusha, which is enormous, that creates creation beyond death. Now we are shifted towards matter, to energy, and we have attained death. We are ready to die. In spite of the presence of corona and pandemic, we have solved, we have shown the presence of life in order to wipe out death. We have a restricted time, 1 hour or 1.5 hours. It is over now. This is because that energy is timeless. That energy is beyond. That energy is love. That energy is now this source. Now we are approaching the source of energy for the whole of humanity, because we died towards the images and the filmmaker. Now we are just touching the secret of the energy, the beauty of the energy that can help to wipe out the suffering of the whole of humanity. That is the message of Sankhya. That is the Sangyoga Purusha and Prakriti. I wonder if I am making myself clear. Prakriti is when the matter is pure, not contaminated by the images or the filmmaker, the eye. Then that pure form of matter is ready to receive, which is sacred. That is the combination of energy and matter, Purush and Prakriti Sangyo. That is creation. Then only we can create. That is actually creation. That is actually life. That is actually love. So when we live with the images and the sense of illusory I, and we call it love, this is not love, or this is not life. This is, we are going to approach the second law of thermodynamics, energy. We are all going to die. But when once there is a combination between the matter and the energy, the pure form of matter, the pure form of intellect, buddhi, the heart and the enormous energy, that is the combination of energy and matter or heart. In that sense, that is actually life, and all we are missing that life. So that is the sense of life, that is the sense of living. So now we are ready to live a different sense. Now we are ready to live a life in a different sense, bereft of death, devoid of depth, devoid of the fear of death, devoid of the fear of suffering. Right? Here ends the philosophy of Sankhya perspective. This can be continued in several sessions, but I think the subject is clear. What Sankhya says is clear. What human life is clear. What is actually the life is clear. And I don't know, because there is no such thing as end in our Indian tradition. We can take a rest here, or we can discuss further in our next session or in this session as well. Thank you. Here is a question from Rohini Dharmapal. She is asking, প্রকৃতি কি শক্তি নয়? প্রকৃতি কি শক্তি নয়? যিনি পুরুষের চেতনাকে জাগ্রত করেন। See more, actually this is not opening the entire thing, and I don't know how to read the entire lines. I think প্রকৃতি কি শক্তি নয়. Yes, প্রকৃতি is শক্তি when it is not destroying. We have gone through that nature is manifested and nature is unmanifested. It is, we are bound to the law of nature, birth, growth, decay and death. When we shift ourselves from nature to Purusha, then only that Purush, that Prakriti becomes Shakti, and that follows the path of Purusha. Clear? Actually, when we pronounce two words, Shiva and Shakti, Purusha and Prakriti, we assume that there are two entities. Actually, Purush means not moving, the stillness, and at the same time it is moving in this universe world. That is its Shakti. But when we term two words, Purush and Prakriti, Shiva and Shakti, then we assume that there are two persons, male and female, and both are inevitably one, both are inseparably one, Ardhanarishwar. This creates our thought, that the filmmaker, the image. right? So Purusha is formless. The energy, when it is not attached to matter, it is formless. When it appears as matter, then there is smell, color, taste, that is empirical. When we receive empirically with our senses, that is the registration of images in our brain. But Purusha is formless, tasteless. It is not empirical. It is immanent and transcendent. This is the message from Veda. The face of God, the face of energy, the face of pure consciousness is having two faces. One is immanent. It is embedded in all human lives, but we cannot see empirically. And it is beyond that, transcendental, immanent and transcendental. Now, Prakriti becomes Shakti. How can we see that there is Shakti? Prakriti is more Shaktishali now. In Bar, in Kozhikode, in Lebanon, that Shakti is all the time. It can do anything. It can rebuild this entire world, they say earth. It is so powerful. But that is not you are talking about. That is the not true sense of Shakti. You are asking me in terms of divinity, the Shakti, Shakti of Shiva, Shakti of God. So, Prakriti becomes Shakti, we can feel when our buddhi is pure, there is no such contaminations, impure thoughts or images, or the illusory filmmaker or the thinker. When that substratum is pure, then the light descends, the energy, we are full of energy from that para state, and then the entire Prakriti becomes our own Shakti. Then it follows the path of Shiva or Purusha. I don't know if I could answer you or not. Shruti saying our earthly positions constrain ourselves in associating with the Purusha, but we are all formed of Prakriti. Then how could we deform ourselves to associate with the formless? No. Very safe. No need to deform ourselves. Just to observe, just to be attentive how this process of registration of images and making of filmmaker, the image maker, is going on. Can we see, can we observe? Not being the observer and the observed. The image maker, I am the image maker and I am making the image. This is again the wrong sense. Right? The observer and the thing observed. No. Again, the knower and the matter, the mind and the matter. This approach is wrong. Can we see? Can we attend? Can we witness this whole process of registration of images in the brain that creates the illusory sense of I and mind, the filmmaker? Thought creates the sense of thinker. Image creates the sense of filmmaker, the image maker. Can we see this entire phenomena, the process? That means I am already separated from this process. No need to deform. Because that image making is the same material process, that is matter. Thought is a material process. Because it is conditioned in time and space. Reality, matter, substance, thought, everything is thought. But there can be a possibility to be free from this forms, the images. That is actually death. So we must be ensure ourselves, we must be determined that we must die. Well, because this is the beginning. When we are ready to die towards this image processing and the image maker, then only we can have the glimpse of the enormous, immense energy. That is love. That is heart. That is life. and then we live properly on this earth, not destroying the Vyakta and Avyakta Prakriti. That is, the sense of Shakti is already there. Now we are engulfed in the energy of that is beyond. We can say that is actual Purush, that is God, that is Shiva, whatever you may call him. That is actually Purush. That is the tremendous energy, enormous energy, unbound energy, eternal. That is not ephemeral. That is not perishable. If we are ready to die, then there is death. Death of the whole process of image making, the I, the illusory I, the dreamer and the dream, and then we can live our life in the best sacred way. That's why seers like, or the sadhaks like Kabir says that, how are you doing this life? The death is engrossing, is eating your life, and you are not aware of that. So if we are aware of this deathly life, if we see a cobra for the first time, we will not wish to see that cobra again. Okay, so corona is not going to harm us, corona is not going to eat us, if we are aware of more dangerous thing we are doing all the time. Another question from our friend Vikas Nandalal. Should one take to sadhana under the guidance of a spiritual master, Sadguru, to achieve the higher state of the consciousness that you describe? Actually, what is described here through the speaker is all encapsulated in the Sankhya Karikas, right? So we all the time look for a guru or a Sadguru, the authority, and wisdom cannot be handed down. Like experience cannot be handed down from one generation to other. My father, how he handled the situation cannot be handed down to me, because the nature is different. The nature in this biological organism is different. He can handle the situation. My father can handle the situation more vigorously. I can handle a situation more quietly. So that experience cannot be handed down. Similarly, a Sadguru cannot hand it down to you the wisdom, but he can show the path. But I think truth, the energy, again in J. Krishnamurti's word, is the pathless land. No need for the authority. There is a saying, very good saying in Yog Vasishtha. It says that Shishya pragyeva bodhasya karanam guru vakyata. Shishya pragyeva bodhasya karanam guru vakyata. गुरु के वाक्य को सुनकर जो बोध होता है शिष्य में, उसका कारण उसकी अपनी प्रज्ञा है. After hearing the words, the sacred words of the spiritual master, the Sadguru, after hearing these spiritual words, the sacred words of his master, the cause of the bodhodaya, the cause of the raising of wisdom is not the words, but his disciples' own prajna, own intuition, own insight that is gifted to us. So every human being is gifted with this sense of intuition, sense of insight that is not contaminated with images, thoughts, the thinker. Through that, by dint of the insight, by the virtue of that insight, we can purify our senses, our mind, our intellect, and then that intellect, that mind transforms into heart. And that heart is pure, that heart is capable to receive the enormous energy that is Purush, that is love, and that is life. So the book of life is more important than any scripture, and Purush is all the time with its earnest desire to look upon you, is looking after you, looking after us. Whatever we need, the Purush can provide us if we have emptied our mind from images and the image maker or the filmmaker. The dispute regarding the Copenhagen conference, right, between Einstein's approach and Heisenberg's approach probably has come to its end. How could you associate it to Sankhya principle? I have already associated, Shruti, that Einstein was in the state of a boundless, looking for a state that he termed as field theory, universal field theory, and his theory was in contrary to the quantum principles. Quantum principle says that life is uncertain. You cannot be a conformist. So it is very good, very nicely explained in Gita, Kshetra and Kshetragya. There is a field, in Einstein's terms, there is a field not polluted, not affected by time and space in the sense of conditioning. Time and space that conditions a matter, reality, right? That is not truth. But this is an actual fact, that what is matter, what is reality, it is conditioned in time and space. So Einstein imagines if is a state that is called a field. He coined the terms field, and he gives the postulates saying this is my field theory, where there is no sense of conditioning as contamination, and then the speed of light is more than the weight of gravity. This is field theory. So no trace of conditioning can be felt by the scientist or the physicist. The same in the Sankhya, Kshetra and Kshetragya. When the mind is empty with the conditioning of image and image maker, then it is empty. Emptiness of emptiness. Empty from conditioning. The void. That void is the field of Einstein. That void is the riktata, shunyata of Sankhya. So there is no form. So you cannot touch that energy, that sacred energy, in forms, in appearance. So you cannot make an image of energy or Purusha. You cannot make an idol to worship like Ganesha, Shiva, Durga and all, Shiva. So in Sankhya system there is no making of idols, because you cannot touch. A man cannot touch that sacred energy unless it is emptied. It is emptied by the conditioning, and this is contrary to the view of Heisenberg in the Copenhagen conference, because Heisenberg was adamant to go through, to touch that mystery of nature in terms of the same conditioning. That's why there was the dispute. That was the dispute. So the emptiness is very important to attain the thing, the state that is called heart. That is not the cardiological organ. The state of mind, the state of being, the state of love, bereft of death, devoid of death. So how could you associate it to the Sankhya principle? It is right that it is our inability for which uncertainty principle has evolved. Yes, but now this is our ability, this is our intuition, this is our antaschetna, this is our insight, this is our pragya that is given to us, that can unlock the cave of our own heart where the energy dwells. where the energy acts through us, then only we can be the instrument of that energy, and we can say there is the energy in its vastness. There is the love, that is the life. When we can emptied, where we have emptied our consciousness from its content, our mind from its images and the illusory sense of I, ego, or whatever we may call it. So, can we assume that it is over now for this session? Because we began at 7 and now we are approaching almost 9. So, this is a serious topic. Sankhya is a serious perspective to approach, and science and philosophy. Sankhya is philosophy as well as science in terms of reasoning. So we have gone through all the history of physics and the philosophical pursuits towards the end of suffering, and here we stop this discussion right now, just for a moment, for a day or for a year. So we should wipe out, we should wind it out with this conclusion or with this observation that we are able to look at ourselves not by applying the instrument as intellect or mind. We should put aside this folly instrument as mind or intellect, and we can utilize that gift called intuition or insight to approach the true nature of life, the true nature of love. And why this love, this compassion? To upsurge, to elevate the human being from his suffering, this universal suffering, because this is there, that dukkha is there, and this is not the final point that I am happy, so it's all. No, we have that energy, we have that glimpse of energy, we have touched that energy to wipe out this suffering of whole of mankind, the humanity. Thank you.